Hi there, friends, regular and new listeners. A warm welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and this is Internet Talk Radio, broadcasted from Sweden, Scandinavia. On Thursdays and Sundays, we are here highlighting information and research for your consideration. We do not tell you what or how to think, or what you should or shouldn't believe. We try to lay forth the information in the best way we can and help to highlight the research of various authors, filmmakers, and researchers, and bring their information to your attention. We do not claim that we are presenting or that we know the truth about everything, but we are searching for it, and we are trying to find out what is going on now, what has been going on in the past, and what we might expect in the future. This is about exploration. We think that you should make up your own mind about these subjects that we cover and continue the search for yourself if you find it interesting. So dare to explore the world and consequently yourself. Today we have author and researcher Michael Tsarion back with us on the show. It was about 4 or 5 months since we had Michael on, and it's always a pleasure having him on. Today we're going to continue on the theme of astrotheology and sidereal mythology. This is the title, of course, of his latest book, and there is so many different topics that connect with this. We are going to focus on a few different things today: sorcerers and magicians, Amonists, Atonists, Druids, and Scythians. And for those of you who have been following our programs with Michael and his work, you know that this will lead us into topics like the Ireland-Egypt connection, the identity of the Hyksos, the Templars and the Merovingians, the Phoenician, the Goths, the area, the sacred tree of the area, and the Scythians, and much, much more. Michael's website is michaeltsarion.com. That's Michael Tsarion.com. And there you can find links to his other websites, Origins and Oracles.com, the MTSAR Forum, Terroscopes.com, and much more. So with that, welcome to the program, Michael. It's great having you back again.
Thanks, Henrik. Thanks for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure.
We have so many different things that we want to get into today, and I want to kick this off right away. In July of this year, Michael released his fourth title, Astrotheology and Sidereal Mythology, a in-depth, thought-provoking exploration into the parent subject of common astrology and astronomy. And this is one of the first books actually in print with the title or term astrotheology. The book is the product of over 20 years of research into esoteric subjects. It is the companion to Michael's DVD released in 2006, also entitled Astrotheology and Sidereal Mythology. And to get things going, get into the mindset, so to speak, of what we're going to talk about here today, I want to read a quote from your first chapter in the book, and this is from Mrs. E. Valentia Straton's The Celestial Ship of the North. The religion of the ancient peoples seemed to have been one throughout the entire world, a great brotherhood, a universal faith. Strange has been the impulse of priests and theologians to deviate from the ancient holiness, which was so solemn and majestic in primeval days, and to instruct the masses in false doctrines. Any comments on that, Michael?
Well, it's such a great passage. That's why I wanted to incorporate it in the book. Those 4 lines should convey to anybody just how important these great scholars were. They were writing back in the 1800s, the early 19th century, the early part of the 20th century, and priestly deception is what she's addressing. That strange it is why these people would want to set themselves up and do this, but that's right. These are the people who have suppressed the ancient teachings, the ancient ways that were there to uplift all mankind, and in place of it, they put this, Leviathan, this institution of deception. And you see, we forget also that these individuals, like E. Valentia Straton, they were really sticking their necks out in those days because it was a lockdown situation. In the 1800s, in the Victorian era, you could not, complain against the system or try to point out, its corruption. I mean, you could end up in a very severe state for doing that. So today we forget that, where everybody thinks of themselves as a rebel. We've got to really understand that those people who looked into these religious matters for the very first time, and they saw the levels of corruption that were happening, and they saw that how the Christian religion and all of these things had established themselves. They were, trying to teach the world this, only to find out that they would be jailed or that their books were being suppressed and so on. So, it's a situation of not only trying to reveal the levels of deception that have taken place, but these individuals, often spent time in jail. I mean, my book is partly dedicated to Reverend Robert Taylor, who was sent to jail twice in his life for literally getting up in his church and telling people that the Gospels, the Old Testament, the New Testament, was based on astrology, Threw him in jail for that. And they even denied him writing paper. I mean, there's clear evidence here. We're not talking any type of theory. There's clear evidence of priestly corruption, priestly deception. That's what, Evil and the Stratons' work was about. That's what these other mentors of mine were about, and that's what my work is about, is the continual process of trying to wake people up to this.
Well, as you say, it's lucky that these people actually weren't killed, because if we back up, a few years, maybe a few hundred even, of course, but I mean, people were burned at the stake, tortured, witches this, witches that, so it's right. This is the environment that we have been in,
That's right.
And we're very fortunate in this day and age. Okay, people's work are being suppressed, of course, that's another level to this, but at least we can write and talk about it,
Well, see, and that's why it's so important to talk and write about the right things, because we've been given freedom, but freedom can also be terribly abused. These people in the past were not really permitted the freedoms that we have, but look at the monumental work that came out of that. Today we got all the freedom, but it's freedom to chew gum and watch TV and Dr. Phil and whatever other garbage. Where's my surfboard? And all sorts of palaver, all sorts of nonsense, all sorts of information, till the point of overindulgence, overstimulation. And yet the key facts about the world we're living in, the key facts about religion and the meaning of life, they kind of sometimes fall by the wayside. This great scholarship doesn't end. The tyranny doesn't end, and therefore the process of exposing that tyranny can never end. It can never rest. We're dealing with, a tiger in the long grass here. We're dealing with a constant hunt and a constant safari into some very, controversial areas, but it has to be done. And I'm very conscious of the people who've been doing it in the past ages, and those people, like you mentioned, the Giordano Brunos, and so forth and so on, who were literally taken out and executed for what they were talking about.
Yes. And, your book features a lot of excerpts from your mentors like Gerald Massey and Alvid Boyne Kuhn and others, and a lot of their work are out of print. It's hard to find. As I understand it, you've been collecting their work for years. Now, was this a big motive for actually writing the book?
Yeah, and this particular book, it was. A good lot of the content is a carry-on from what I was doing with the Irish origins of civilization, but that's a double volume that was already, if you include the appendices, reaching the 2,000-page mark. It was so, voluminous and heavy that, I couldn't even put the appendices in the book. I had to put them online.
Yeah.
That's fine, because people are contributing all the time, so that was okay. But then there was a lot of content left over on astrotheology, which, I would have loved to put in the book, but it was just impossible. So a good deal of that has gone into the astrotheology book. And then there's all the other study that I've been doing on that subject itself. It seemed that the time had come to not just do a DVD. I'd done the DVD in 2006, but there was still so much material that you can't even, get to. And I wasn't able to get to in either the DVD or the Irish Origins series. So it suddenly started to appear that it needed a book of its own, But yeah, the most important reason and the joy of it, my personal satisfaction, out of it, was to finally do justice to these mentors and to help introduce my readers to these individuals so that they might go on and procure these works and really get into the subject in depth, and that has been happening, so it's great.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. And, let's dive into the subject matter here. Last time we spoke of the symbol of the serpent and how it was used as a symbol of learning. and royalty, both in Ireland and in Egypt. You said it was connected to the constellation Draco, and I thought that this might be the reason for the Vikings actually using that shape for their ships, their ocean-going vessels, and also for their earthworks. We can see this in Avebury and Ohio in America, right, Michael?
Oh yeah. We see the ancient Celtic god Hearn holding the serpent, and yet aren't we always told that there was no snakes in Ireland? And yet, in one of the oldest images of God, the Celtic forest god Hearn is actually holding a snake. I mean, can people connect the dots here? We got the Viking ships, exactly the same type of dragon shape as we see in the Egyptian iconography of Horus or Set, crossing the heavens. You see in the serpent-shaped boat. You have the Ohio serpent, which is a big earthworks in America, and what do you know? It just happens to be shaped like a serpent. We have exactly the same design in Scotland at a gigantic Scottish earthworks, which I mentioned in the Irish Origins book. We have it in Avebury, like you're saying. We have serpentine motifs on most of the megaliths, a good deal of the megaliths in Ireland, you see. As we said in the last show, the royalty of both Ireland and Egypt, if people can refer to that show, wore the serpent as a symbol of not only royalty, but of great wisdom. I always think of the serpent as the actual emblem of the stellar cult. And it's one of the classic, it's not the only one, but it's one of the classic images that if you study it, you absolutely can confirm my thesis, which is that there was a connection between the West and the East, and that there was a worldwide brotherhood of adepts, not just localized to one little area, like we normally think of the Druids as just little guys playing the harp over there in Ireland or whatever.
Right.
But, and even coming back to the Hearn symbol, that Irish god is sitting in the yoga pose, surrounded by the animals, holding the serpent and the ring. It's almost an identical pose to thousands of miles away in India when they found the images of Shiva. Shiva's title, Pashupati, meant Lord of the Animals.
Yes.
So the title is the same, the scenery is the same, the symbolism is the same. Wearing the horns, wearing the horns of the stag or the horns of the goat or the bull even. We've got Krishna, the same imagery, or the cross-legged Krishna playing the flute. We've got who is it? We've got Orpheus, because the Greeks picked up on this, and their Orpheus is based on the Isis of Ireland. Then we've got Sir Tristram, the harpist, you see, in the old Arthurian legend. And then we got King David, the harpist, in the biblical tradition. All these dramatis personae, you see, are based on the original Celtic, Irish, Aryan forest god. And Jesus, even Jesus is born out of this. His name Isus, the full name Isus, is a direct translation of the old Celtic, Irish, Gaelic, God of the West.
Yes. And I think we talked about this on the last program we did, that the area took the cultural elements west due to the age of catastrophe. That's a theme that we talk very much about on this program, of course. So they took the cultural elements west due to the age of catastrophe and fall of the pre-flood civilizations in Egypt. They were known as the Aryans, Ari or Aria, but also as Shemsu-Hor, or the disciples of Horus, right?
That's right. In fact, I think it's like 80 or 90% of the images of Horus, especially the early ones that were discovered, showed the god with blue eyes, green-blue eyes. And Horus was even known as the god of the West, No question about it, that he was a sun god that had been imported from elsewhere. Then they found ancient records talking about the blonde, tall,